The invitation arrived on cream-colored cardstock, gold letterpress catching the afternoon light. You are cordially invited to celebrate 40 years of perfect love. I nearly laughed at the word perfect. My parents had always been obsessed with perfection, especially where appearances were concerned. What's that, Mom? Emily wheeled herself into the kitchen, her science textbook balanced on her lap. At 12, she was already smarter than I'd ever been, with a mind that saw possibilities where others saw limitations. Your grandparents' anniversary invitation, I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. 40 years. Emily's face lit up. Can I help plan? I've been learning about event planning in my business club at school. Did you know that accessible venues are actually better for everyone, not just people who need them? And I found this amazing website that shows how to make any celebration inclusive. My heart squeezed as I watched her enthusiasm. How could I tell her that her grandparents' idea of a perfect celebration wouldn't include their only granddaughter? The accident that put Emily in a wheelchair happened 3 years ago. A drunk driver, a rainy night, and our lives changed forever. My husband John didn't survive the crash. Emily's spine was damaged at T10, leaving her paralyzed from the waist down. My parents' response? They stopped inviting us to family gatherings. It's not that we don't want to see you, Mom had said during one particularly painful phone call. It's just that the house isn't equipped. And you know how your father feels about making changes to his perfect home. Their perfect home. Their perfect life. Their perfect image. Everything had to be just so carefully curated for their country club friends and social media followers. A granddaughter in a wheelchair didn't fit that image. Mom? Emily's voice pulled me back to the present. Are you okay? You're doing that thing where you stare at nothing. I forced a smile. Just thinking about party planning. Why don't you show me what you've learned about it? For the next hour, I listened as she enthusiastically shared her research on inclusive event planning. Her eyes sparkled as she described ramp placements, accessible table arrangements, and ways to ensure everyone could participate fully in celebrations. And the best part, she concluded, is that these changes make things better for everyone. Like, wider aisles aren't just good for wheelchairs. They help elderly people with walkers, parents with strollers, even servers carrying trays. I was saved from responding by my phone ringing. Mom's number. Taking a deep breath, I answered. Rebecca, darling. Her voice dripped artificial sweetness. Did you receive the invitation? Yes, just today. It looks lovely. Wonderful. Now, about the arrangements, she paused delicately. We're having it at the Rose Garden venue. Very exclusive, very elegant. Limited space, you understand. My stomach clenched. I knew where this was going. Mom. And the photographer we've booked is absolutely brilliant. He's done shoots for Vogue. He has very specific ideas about the aesthetic we're going for. Mom, just say what you really mean. She sighed, dropping the sweet tone. Fine. Rebecca, you know we love Emily, but this is our day. We've planned everything to be perfect. The venue has stairs everywhere. It's part of its historic charm. And frankly, a wheelchair would stand out in the photos. It's not the image we want for our 40th. Blood roared in my ears. Not the image you want. She's your granddaughter. Don't be dramatic. Of course we'll send her a piece of cake. Perhaps you could get a sitter, make it an adults-only evening. She's 12, not 2. And she's family. Rebecca, Mom's voice turned cold. We've spent a small fortune on this celebration. Everything is designed to perfectly recreate our original wedding day. The same venue, the same flowers, even the same first dance song. We won't change it all just to accommodate special needs. I glanced at Emily, thankfully absorbed in her textbook. You know what? Don't worry about it. We won't come at all. Don't be childish. Of course you should come, just alone. After hanging up, I sat at the kitchen table, shaking with anger. Emily looked up from her book, her expression too knowing for a 12-year-old. They don't want me there, do they? Sometimes I forgot how perceptive she was. How many times had she seen the subtle flinches, heard the awkward excuses, noticed the way people's eyes slid past her chair? No, honey. They don't deserve you there. She wheeled closer, taking my hand. It's okay, Mom. I'm used to it. Grandma and Grandpa have always been weird about the chair. Remember last Christmas when they sent gift cards instead of having us over? The fact that she was comforting me made it even worse. My brilliant, brave daughter had learned to accept being excluded by her own grandparents. "It's not okay," I said firmly. "None of this is okay." That night, after Emily was asleep, I sat in my home office staring at the invitation. The Rose Garden venue. Something about that name tickled my memory. I opened my laptop and started searching through old emails. 3 years ago, just after the accident, I'd been in a fog of grief and hospital bills. John's life insurance had paid out a substantial sum, but medical expenses ate through it quickly. Then there had been the lawsuit against the drunk driver, the settlement. There, an email from my investment advisor. After the settlement, she had suggested diversifying into real estate, specifically historic properties that could generate rental income. And one of those properties, my hands trembled as I opened the attachment. Purchase agreement, deed transfer, property photos, the elegant Victorian mansion with its famous rose gardens. The venue I'd bought as an investment and left in the hands of a management company. The same venue where my parents planned to recreate their perfect day. They didn't know, of course. The management company operated under a different name, and I'd been a silent owner, too busy helping Emily adjust to her new life to think much about the property. But now, I picked up my phone and called the management company's after-hours line. "This is Rebecca Mitchell. I own the Rose Garden venue, and I need to discuss some changes to an upcoming event." The next few weeks were a blur of activity. I hired an accessibility consultant, the best in the state. Emily's eyes grew huge when I asked her to share her research on inclusive event planning. "Really? You want my help?" "Absolutely. You're the expert, after all." We worked together, Emily's excitement growing as she saw her ideas taking shape. Temporary ramps that blended seamlessly with the historic architecture. Elegant lifts disguised by trailing roses. Modified tables that looked like vintage furniture but accommodated wheelchairs perfectly. "See," Emily beamed as we reviewed the plans. "Beautiful and accessible aren't opposites, they can work together." I hugged her tightly. "Just like you, honey. Beautiful inside and out." My parents called occasionally to share updates about their plans, each call a fresh exercise in swallowing rage. "The venue manager keeps suggesting these horrible modern additions," Mom complained. "Ramps and lifts. Can you imagine? It would completely ruin the historic aesthetic we're paying for." "How awful," I replied, watching Emily practice wheelchair dance moves in our living room. She'd recently joined an adaptive dance program and was mastering spins that took my breath away. And they're insisting on these new table arrangements. Something about accessibility regulations. Your father is furious. He's talking about suing them for breach of contract. I bit back a laugh. That would be interesting. The day before the anniversary celebration, I received a final call from Mom. "Now remember, darling, arrival is at 4 sharp. The photographer wants to catch the golden hour light. And you'll be sitting at table 3 with your cousins Anne and Peter. We've arranged everything perfectly. Everything except including your granddaughter," I couldn't help adding. She sighed heavily. "Rebecca, we've been through this. The venue simply isn't suitable for special arrangements. It's a historic building. You can't expect us to compromise our perfect day just because. Just because your granddaughter exists. Just because she survived something that killed her father. Just because she refuses to be invisible to make you comfortable. You're being difficult on purpose. This is our day. We've planned everything down to the last detail. Nothing can go wrong." I looked at the venue modifications blueprint spread across my desk, at Emily's careful notes about inclusive celebration strategies, at the management company's confirmation that all changes had been completed ahead of schedule. "Don't worry, Mom," I said softly. "Everything will be perfect." The Rose Garden venue looked stunning in the late afternoon light. Emily and I arrived early, using the elegant new side entrance with its gently sloping pathway bordered by blooming roses. The historic charm remained untouched, but now the beauty was accessible to everyone. "Mom," Emily whispered as we approached the entrance, "did you do all this for me?" I squeezed her shoulder. "Actually, you did this. Your research, your ideas, you showed how to make it beautiful and inclusive. I just helped make it happen." We entered through the carved wooden doors, now equipped with subtle automatic openers. Inside, the grand foyer took Emily's breath away. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow lights across marble floors. Floral arrangements scented the air, and everywhere seamlessly integrated into the historic design were the accessibility features she'd helped plan. Mrs. Mitchell. The venue manager hurried over, clipboard in hand. Everything is ready exactly as you specified. The staff has been briefed on the accessible serving procedures, and the photographer is already setting up the lighting. Rebecca. My mother's voice cut through the conversation like a knife. What are you doing here so early? And why did you bring? Her voice trailed off as she spotted Emily, elegant in her purple dress, her wheelchair decorated with delicate roses to match the venue's theme. Hello, Grandma, Emily said politely. Happy anniversary. Mom's face went through several interesting color changes. Rebecca, we discussed this. The venue isn't suitable. The photographs. Our perfect day. Oh, but it is suitable, I replied calmly. In fact, it's perfectly suitable now. Would you like a tour of the improvements? Emily can explain all the accessibility features. She helped design them. Improvements? What improvements? Who authorized? Mom's eyes narrowed as understanding began to dawn. What did you do? Nothing that wasn't within my rights as the owner. Owner? Dad appeared behind Mom, his face darkening. What are you talking about? I gestured to the venue manager. Perhaps you could show my parents the updated property records. As they read the documents, I watched their perfect world crumble. The venue they'd chosen to recreate their wedding day, the historic building they'd insisted couldn't be modified, had belonged to their excluded granddaughter's mother all along. This is, Dad sputtered. Perfect? I suggested. Because it is. Every modification has been carefully designed to preserve the historic character while ensuring everyone can participate. The roses still bloom, the architecture still shines. But now it shines for everyone. Emily wheeled forward, her voice strong and clear. Want to see how it works, Grandma? The ramps are almost invisible unless you need them. And look at the dance floor. It's specially textured so wheels don't slip. I can even do spins. She demonstrated with a graceful twirl that sent her skirt floating. Mom pressed her fingers to her temples. The photographer, the pictures. Will be beautiful. I finished, because there's nothing more beautiful than family being together. All of the family. Guests began arriving, exclaiming over the venue's elegance. Many commented on the thoughtful design features, the comfortable seating areas for elderly relatives, the clear pathways that made navigation easy for everyone, the tables that welcomed wheelchairs without looking institutional. This is amazing, my cousin Anne gushed, watching her mother easily navigate the space with her walker. Mom hasn't been able to attend events like this for years because of her arthritis. But look at her, she's not struggling at all. The photographer, far from being disturbed by Emily's presence, seemed inspired. The light on the chrome wheels, the roses, the historic backdrop, c'est magnifique, he declared in his French accent. May I suggest some special shots? The contrast will be stunning. Throughout the evening, I watched my parents' rigid ideas of perfection slowly crack. They saw Emily charming guests with her knowledge of the venue's history and architecture. They watched her dance with her adaptive dance class friends, who I'd secretly invited to perform. They noticed how many guests appreciated the accessible features: elderly aunts, pregnant cousins, friends with temporary injuries. During dinner, Emily gave a speech she prepared without telling me. 3 years ago, my dad died and I lost the use of my legs. Some people thought that meant I also lost my place in this family. They thought I would ruin perfect moments just by being present in my wheelchair. The room fell silent. My parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But Dad always told me that real perfection isn't about how things look, it's about how they feel. About love that makes room for everyone, even when it's not convenient. About family that adapts and grows stronger, instead of excluding those who are different. She wheeled to the center of the room, roses swaying on her chair. So happy anniversary, Grandma and Grandpa. Thank you for accidentally choosing the perfect venue to learn this lesson. And Mom, she turned to me, eyes shining. Thank you for showing me that sometimes the best revenge is making the world better, not just for yourself, but for everyone. I wasn't the only one wiping away tears. Later, during the dancing, Mom found me at the bar. The venue, she began awkwardly. It really is beautiful. More beautiful than before, if I'm being honest. That's what Emily tried to tell you. Accessibility doesn't ruin things. It enhances them, makes them available to everyone. Real beauty isn't about exclusion. She watched Emily spinning on the dance floor, her wheelchair moving in perfect rhythm with the music, other dancers adapting their steps to include her. "We've been wrong," Mom said quietly. "So wrong for so long. Can you ever forgive us?" "I'm not the one you need to ask for forgiveness." She nodded slowly. "Will she? Would she be willing to help us make our house more accessible? Maybe start with a ramp at the front entrance." "Why don't you ask her yourself?" I suggested. She's the expert after all. The next day, photos from the celebration flooded social media. Not the carefully staged, artificially perfect images my parents had planned, but real moments of joy and connection. Emily dancing in her rose-decorated wheelchair. 4 generations of family moving freely through the beautiful space. My parents learning to waltz around their granddaughter's spins. The Rose Garden venue became known as the city's premier location for inclusive events. Emily's designs were featured in architectural magazines. Other historic buildings began consulting us about accessibility modifications. But the real change happened more quietly. My parents' perfect house got its first ramp, then accessible bathrooms, then modified gathering spaces. Emily started spending weekends there, teaching her grandparents about adaptive sports and helping them understand her world. "You know what's funny?" she told me one evening as we looked through the anniversary photos. Grandma and Grandpa wanted their celebration to perfectly recreate their wedding day, but instead they got something better, a day that created a new beginning. She was right. The anniversary that was supposed to be about recapturing the past had instead opened a door to the future. A future where perfection wasn't about appearances or exclusion, but about making room for everyone at the table. Last week, my parents hosted their first fully accessible family dinner. Emily helped plan everything, from the table heights to the serving arrangements. Looking around that table, at family members who once would have been excluded now sharing food and laughter together, I realized that sometimes the most perfect moments are the ones that break all the rules about perfection. "You didn't just change the venue," Mom told me later, watching Emily teach her younger cousin's wheelchair dance moves in the newly modified living room. "You changed us, made us see that our idea of perfect was actually deeply flawed." Dad added, "We spent 40 years trying to maintain this image of perfection. Turns out what we really needed was a 12-year-old girl to show us what true beauty looks like." Emily keeps the first accessibility blueprint framed in her room, next to a photo from the anniversary celebration. In the picture, she's in the center of the dance floor, surrounded by family, her wheelchair trailing roses, her smile radiant. The historic venue's elegant architecture forms the backdrop, its new accessible features visible but unobtrusive. "See," she often says, pointing to the photo. "Perfect doesn't mean excluding people who are different. Perfect means creating spaces where everyone can shine." The Rose Garden venue still hosts grand celebrations, each one more inclusive than the last. But its most important transformation wasn't in its architecture or accessibility features. It was in the minds and hearts of the people who discovered that true perfection lies not in maintaining appearances, but in breaking down barriers and building bridges instead. My parents' 40th anniversary didn't recreate their wedding day as they planned. Instead, it created something new. A family that finally understood that love doesn't demand perfection, it demands growth. That tradition doesn't have to mean exclusion. That the most beautiful celebrations are the ones where everyone can participate. And Emily? She's already planning their 50th anniversary. It'll be even better, she promises with a grin. 10 more years of accessibility innovations to include. I have no doubt it will be perfect, not despite the wheelchairs and ramps and modifications, but because of them. Because real perfection isn't about maintaining an image. It's about maintaining connections, even when they require us to rebuild everything we thought we knew about beauty. After all, as Emily reminds us, roses don't stop being beautiful just because you build a path to reach them. They become more beautiful because everyone can get close enough to see their perfection.